The whispers of Willow Creek always spoke of the Backup family. Not just any family, but the formidable black African-American clan who stood as an unshakable bulwark against all odds. People didn't just respect them, they feared them. It was said that when the Backups entered a room, the very floor shifted and the sun itself cowered in their presence. Major, the Backup dad, a man of imposing stature and quiet wisdom, led the family with an iron will. Destiny, the Backup mother, possessed a grace that belied her sharp intellect. Then there were the younger generation. Clayton, the Backup brother, whose calm demeanor hid a powerful resolve, and Kalisha, the Backup sister, beautiful and fiercely independent. Individually, they were formidable, but together, they were an unstoppable force, a last resort for those with nowhere else to turn, their reputation for solving the unsolvable cemented in the town's folklore. Yet, beneath this veneer of invincibility, lay a tangled web of secrets, each member guarding their own truth, threatening to unravel the very foundation of their strength. Despite their revered status, the Backup family wasn't without its internal turmoils. Their power was a double-edged sword, demanding unwavering loyalty and adherence to unspoken rules. Outsiders were viewed with suspicion, and the family's honor was paramount. This strict code, however, chafed at Kalisha, who found herself deeply entangled in a forbidden romance. Her secret boyfriend, a white man named Liam, stood in direct defiance of the family's unspoken decree against external attachments, especially those that crossed racial lines in their insular world. Kalisha loved him fiercely, but the constant need for secrecy weighed heavily on her. Liam, weary of their clandestine affair, had finally issued an ultimatum: marry him or lose him forever. The deadline loomed, a ticking time bomb threatening to shatter Kalisha's world and expose her biggest transgression to her unyielding family. Major Backup carried a confession within him, a heavy weight that had burdened his soul for years. It was a truth so profound, so potentially devastating, that he feared it would shatter the family's very fabric and forever tarnish their revered name. He imagined the looks of betrayal, the unyielding disappointment in his children's eyes, and the irreparable rift it would create. Each passing day, the secret gnawed at him, a silent torment that threatened to consume him. He often found himself gazing at his family, wondering if this day would be the one he finally unburdened himself, or if the fear of their judgment would forever keep him silent, condemned to carry his solitary burden. The more they relied on him, the more he felt the crushing weight of his unspoken sin. Unbeknownst to Major, Destiny, the seemingly unflappable Backup mother, harbored a secret of her own, a clandestine affair that she meticulously kept hidden. She believed her secret was impenetrable, her actions untraceable, but an unseen hand had begun to play a dangerous game. Anonymous notes, cryptic SMS messages, and chilling phone calls began to plague her, each one more unsettling than the last, all signed with the name Nancy. Destiny racked her brilliant mind, trying to identify her tormentor, but the elusive Nancy remained just out of reach. What Destiny didn't know was that Nancy harbored an unrequited affection for Clayton, the Backup brother, and was too intimidated by the family's formidable reputation to confess her feelings directly. Nancy, driven by a desperate longing for Clayton's attention and a twisted sense of justice, sought to leverage Destiny's secret to force her aid, threatening to expose the affair if her demands were not met. Clayton Backup, the steadfast and composed Backup brother, found himself the unwitting object of his neighbor's unwavering affections. Sarah, a woman from Willow Creek, was relentlessly pursuing him, concocting an endless stream of fabricated crises and minor dilemmas, all designed to gain his attention and draw him into her orbit. Clayton, ever the professional, had made his disinterest crystal clear, gently but firmly rebuffing her advances. He valued his privacy and understood the delicate balance of their family's public persona versus their private lives. Yet, Sarah remained undeterred, clinging to the hope that one day her persistence would wear him down, even for a simple date. Her constant presence and manufactured emergencies were becoming a growing annoyance, a subtle yet persistent disruption to his otherwise ordered life, testing his patience even as he maintained his polite distance. Sarah's desperate attempts to connect with Clayton ranged from claiming a broken fence that required his expert repair to a phantom stray animal needing his bravery to rescue. Each fabricated plea was met with Clayton's calm refusal or the delegation to a more appropriate, less involved solution. She would appear at odd hours, always with a seemingly urgent plea for help, hoping that proximity would somehow ignite a spark between them. Despite his consistent rejection, Sarah remained stubbornly optimistic, convinced that her relentless pursuit would eventually break through his stoic exterior. She even started leaving baked goods on his doorstep, small tokens of her affection that he politely but firmly returned, further cementing his disinterest in anything beyond neighborly courtesy. Kalisha felt the noose tightening around her neck. Liam's ultimatum echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the impending doom. She loved him, truly, but the thought of defying her family, of bringing an outsider into their insular world, filled her with dread. She paced her room at night, replaying every conversation with Liam, every argument, every desperate plea for more time. She knew her family would never approve, and the idea of public scrutiny, of being the one to finally break their unyielding code, was almost unbearable. The pressure was immense, a crushing weight that threatened to buckle her resolve. She considered running away with Liam, but the thought of abandoning her family, of betraying their trust, was equally horrifying. She was trapped between her heart's desire and her loyalty to her lineage. Meanwhile, Destiny's anxiety escalated with each anonymous message from Nancy. The notes were becoming more personal, more threatening, revealing details about her affair that only she and her lover knew. Destiny, a woman who prided herself on her ability to unravel any mystery, found herself utterly stumped. The thought that someone, an unknown entity, held such power over her, that her carefully constructed world was teetering on the brink of exposure, was terrifying. She spent sleepless nights trying to trace the calls, to identify the sender of the texts, but Nancy remained a ghost. The demand for help with Clayton was clear, but the price was too high. Revealing her secret would undoubtedly bring the wrath of her family down upon her. She felt isolated and vulnerable, a stark contrast to her usual unwavering composure. The tension in the Backup household, though unspoken, was palpable. Major's silent brooding became more pronounced, his usually commanding presence tinged with a deep-seated melancholy. He found himself scrutinizing his children, wondering how they would react if his long-held secret ever saw the light of day. He rehearsed his confession countless times in his mind, each scenario ending in the same devastating outcome: his family's disdain and the collapse of their revered image. The weight of his past threatened to overshadow his present, and the fear of judgment paralyzed him, preventing him from seeking solace or counsel. He poured himself into his work, hoping to drown out the incessant whispers of his conscience, but the burden remained, a constant companion. Destiny, despite her outward calm, was internally a maelstrom of worry. The anonymous threats from Nancy were escalating, hinting at specific times and places of her indiscretions, leaving her with no doubt that she was being watched. The thought that someone could penetrate her carefully constructed facade, that her private life was being meticulously documented by an unknown adversary, was unnerving. She grew paranoid, scrutinizing every face, every shadow, wondering who Nancy truly was and how she possessed such intimate knowledge. The demand to help Nancy with Clayton was becoming more insistent, the veiled threats more overt. Destiny realized she was in a perilous situation, caught between a rock and a hard place, and the pressure was forcing her to consider desperate measures. Kalisha, at her breaking point, decided she couldn't live with the constant deceit any longer. She knew she had to tell her family about Liam, regardless of the consequences. The thought of their disapproval was terrifying, but the alternative, losing Liam and living a life of perpetual pretense, was even worse. She planned to confess to Major first, hoping his wisdom and love would soften the blow for the rest of the family. She prepared herself for the inevitable storm, for the lectures and the disappointment, but she was resolute in her decision. This was her life, her love, and she was determined to fight for it, even if it meant risking her place within the hallowed walls of the Backup family. Nancy, growing impatient with Destiny's inaction, decided to ramp up her tactics. The anonymous notes became more explicit, threatening to expose Destiny's affair to Major directly if she didn't comply with her demands immediately. Destiny knew time was running out. She couldn't risk her husband discovering her secret from an outside source. The humiliation, the betrayal, would be too much to bear. She realized she had to play Nancy's game, at least for now, and feign compliance. Her only hope was to buy herself enough time to uncover Nancy's identity and neutralize the threat before her carefully guarded secret exploded into the open. The stakes were incredibly high, and Destiny, for the first time in a long time, felt a tremor of fear. The tension finally broke in a dramatic family gathering. Kalisha, trembling but determined, confessed her relationship with Liam to Major, Destiny, and Clayton. A stunned silence filled the room, heavy with unspoken disapproval. Major's face remained impassive, a mask of unreadable emotions, while Destiny's eyes flickered with a mix of shock and concern. Clayton, usually so composed, showed a rare flash of surprise. Kalisha braced herself for the backlash, for the lectures and the condemnations, but the silence was almost worse, a chilling prelude to the storm she knew was coming. She explained her love for Liam, her desire for a normal life, and her plea for their understanding. As the family grappled with Kalicia's revelation, Destiny received another anonymous call, this time with a live feed of Major leaving a secret location, clearly indicating Nancy knew Major's movements too. The message was clear: help me or I expose everything. Destiny's blood ran cold. The thought of Nancy knowing Major's schedule, of her reach extending beyond just Destiny's secret, sent a shiver down her spine. The pressure to act was immense, and a desperate plan began to form in her mind. She had to expose Nancy, not just for herself, but for the entire family's safety. The game had just escalated, and Destiny knew she had to move quickly and decisively to protect her loved ones from this unseen enemy. Major, still reeling from Kalicia's confession, felt the pressure of his own secret intensifying. He saw the cracks forming in the family's carefully constructed facade, and he knew his confession would only widen them. He retreated to his study, lost in thought, wrestling with his conscience. He knew he couldn't keep his secret forever, but the timing felt catastrophic. The family was already reeling from Kalicia's news, and adding another layer of turmoil seemed unbearable. Yet the burden was becoming unbearable, eating away at him, leaving him restless and unable to find peace. He felt a deep sense of loneliness, a man burdened by a past that threatened to consume his present. Meanwhile, Destiny, feigning cooperation with Nancy, began her own counter-investigation. Using her exceptional skills in deduction and her extensive network, she started to meticulously piece together clues. She analyzed the voice on the phone, the patterns in the messages, the subtle hints within the anonymous notes. She realized Nancy wasn't just an amateur blackmailer. She was cunning and resourceful. Destiny found herself in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, and she was determined to be the victor. She knew she had to be subtle, to avoid alerting Nancy that she was onto her, and to wait for the opportune moment to strike, to finally unmask her tormentor and secure her family's safety. The moment of truth arrived during a tense family dinner. Major, his voice heavy with emotion, finally confessed his deadly secret. He revealed a past transgression, a deeply regrettable decision that had haunted him for decades, a secret that could easily shatter their reputation and their bond. The revelation sent shockwaves through the family. Kalicia gasped. Destiny's face, drained of color, and even Clayton, usually stoic, showed signs of deep distress. The confession was met with a mix of disbelief, hurt, and anger. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the rapid beating of their hearts. The Backup family, renowned for their unwavering strength, found themselves at a crossroads, their very foundation shaken to its core by the weight of Major's past. Suddenly, a strange phone vibrated on the table, a device Destiny had secretly placed earlier. It displayed a live video feed. Nancy, her face partially obscured, observing them from a hidden location, a triumphant smirk on her lips. As the family watched in stunned silence, Nancy, thinking her plan was foolproof, made her demands directly, taunting Destiny and revealing intimate details of Major's confession, proving her insidious reach. But as she spoke, a figure emerged. From the shadows behind her, Clayton. He had been working in conjunction with Destiny, following her carefully laid traps. With swift, silent precision, he apprehended Nancy, revealing her true identity. Not a complete stranger, but Sarah, their persistent neighbor, whose obsession with Clayton had spiraled into a dangerous game of manipulation and blackmail. The revelation of Sarah as Nancy stunned the family. Her seemingly harmless infatuation with Clayton had morphed into a sinister obsession, driving her to extreme measures to insert herself into their lives. The layers of deception unraveled, exposing her twisted motivations and the extent of her cunning. The family, though reeling from Major's confession and the shock of Sarah's betrayal, felt a strange sense of catharsis. The air of secrecy that had permeated their home for so long had finally been cleared, albeit through painful revelations. They still had to process Major's secret and Kalicia's choice, but at least the external threat had been neutralized. In the aftermath, the Backup family faced their truths head-on. Major, humbled and contrite, found an unexpected outpouring of understanding, particularly from Destiny, who, despite her own affair being revealed by Sarah's actions, understood the weight of a secret. Kalicia, though, deeper understanding and a renewed commitment to honesty, reminding them that true strength lay not just in their extraordinary abilities, but in their unwavering loyalty to each other.